A couple of years ago, I came up with the idea of what we call a prong collar leash. You know, I've trained dogs since the 60s, and in the 70s when I was first exposed to Schutzhund, everybody was training with prong collars. The problem with prong collars is that no matter how they're put on, there's going to come a time when they're going to come apart and pop off the dog. That's why we always recommend, when people buy a prong collar from us anyway, that they have a backup collar on a dog, so that the dog wears a prong collar and the leash is also attached. In our case, we prefer to use a dominant dog collar, a real lightweight slip lead collar. That way, if a prong collar comes apart, you still have your dog on a leash. Now think about this. If you're going to give your dog a correction with the prong collar, it's at a time when your dog is probably pretty distracted. That's probably the last time in the world that you want your dog to be off leash and out of your control. So you want to keep your dog on leash. Hence came my idea for this prong collar leash. The way it works is there's two clips on the lead, the short one and the long one. The short one is always connected to the prong collar. The longer clip is connected to the dominant dog collar. People that have been customer of ours for the last years have seen us talk about these. When we give a correction, when you give a correction to a dog, the short leash is going to give a correction before the long leash is. So the dog will get the correction from the prong collar. Now, we here at Leerburg get a lot of good ideas from customers, and we don't just blow them off. That's where good ideas come from, our people in the field. A lot of times we will have a product made when customers come to us. Hence, look at all the prong collar leashes that we have now. These aren't things that we thought up. These are things that our customers came to us and talked about. And let me show you some of these because they're a good idea. We had a customer come and say, look, I like your 6-foot leather leash. It's really, really good. But there's times that it would be nice to have easier control of my dog. Can you make a prong collar leash with a short handle on it, in addition to the main handle at the top? So we now have a 6-foot prong collar leash with two handles on it. You know, think of it like this. If you've got a big dog and you're, you know, I hate to say it, but if you've got a big dog, aggressive dog, and you're walking the dog in the city and you've got him on a 6-foot leash and he's 6 feet away from you, he's going to be harder to control than if you grab here, close to the dog. So that's where the two-handled leash came from. We had customers say, you know, it would be nice, we really like training with a lighter leash. So we made the 1/2-inch leash rather than the 3/4-inch leash. So we have a prong collar leash made out of latigo leather. That's a prong collar leash. The clips are a little smaller on this leash. People with smaller dogs will use this leash. The clips aren't quite as big. The clips on this lighter leash are smaller than they are on the 6-foot leash, the 3/4-inch leash. We had people come to us and say, can you make a prong collar leash out of the synthetic leather? And we did it. It's kind of cool. I like the orange part of it. The part that's the clip that's attached to the dominant dog collar is a smaller clip, so it's a lighter clip. You can see the two leashes here. I want to say something about this synthetic leather. People think that maybe this synthetic leather is not as strong as regular leather, and they're drop dead wrong. Our man that makes this is an Amish harness maker. He set up, without me even asking him, he set up a demonstration with his horses, which we're going to go film in a few weeks, where he took one of our 6-foot leashes, a piece of our 6-foot leash, and he attached it to a D-ring, and a D-ring on this side. He took a piece of the synthetic leash, put it on a D-ring, and attached it to another D-ring. He hooked these two D-rings to a post, and he hooked the other two D-rings to his horse. And then he had his horse start to pull. Well, lo and behold, the synthetic leash is stronger because the leather leash broke first. So I thought, wow, that's a cool demonstration. Well, the other advantage of this synthetic leashes, and we offer these in a regular leash, is that when you get them wet, they don't stretch and they stay just as strong. Wet leather, you know, our Latigo leather is great. It gets wet, it still stays pliable, but leather is leather. You know, when it gets wet, it loses some of its strength. The synthetic leather doesn't do that. Now, the last two prong collar leash ideas came from customers too. We had two different customers that asked, why can't we have a 4-foot leather leash or prong collar leash? So we put one together, and you know what? It's selling pretty good. Again, the snap for the dominant dog collar is smaller than the snap that goes on the prong collar. Cool idea. And then we had a customer say, I don't need, I live in a big city. I don't need a 4-foot leash. I don't need a 6-foot leash. I want to take my dog on a sidewalk, and I don't want him interacting with other people's dogs. And it's not the leash that I take him when I take him outside to go to the bathroom. We just use it for exercise. So we came up with a 2-foot dominant dog collar leash. You know, if I had to have a dog that I gave corrections with a prong collar, I would never take him out without one of these prong collar leashes and a double dominant dog collar, and for safety reasons. I mean, I've just heard too many horror stories about dogs that get loose and attack other dogs when they're off leash and out of control because the prong collar came apart. The vast majority of the time, though, when a prong collar comes apart, it comes apart because the people don't put it on right. They put it on too loose and it's hanging down and sloppy and it pops apart. The correct way to put a prong collar on is to have the connectors for the prong collar right behind the dog's ears, and the prong collar goes right up underneath his neck. But just because you put it on correctly doesn't mean that that's not going to come apart. The prong collar is a good training tool if it's used correctly. If it's used incorrectly, it can cause you some problems.